Hello, my name is Sarah and I'm an English teacher and language anxiety coach. And in this video, I'm going to talk about using English at work and how you can overcome any fear or anxiety you may have when it comes to speaking English at work. So, I've worked with students who are amazing at public speaking. I had a student once who was the head of a department and they were a fantastic public speaker in their first language, really amazing. And they actually had a really high level of English. This person was a C1 level English speaker. And yet, if this person had to do public speaking in English, even if they were just chairing a meeting, they fell to pieces. So all that beautiful confidence that they had in their first language, it was not there when they spoke in English. And what often happens with us when we have to use our second language in a stressful situation is that we start to doubt ourselves. So our negative self-talk starts to take over, and it might say things like, what happens if I make a mistake? What happens if I make a mistake? Are they going to notice? Are they going to laugh at me? Or what happens if I don't understand them? What happens if I don't understand their strange accent? Or maybe they're going to use really strange idioms and I'm not going to understand. Or what happens if my pronunciation is so awful that they don't understand me? What happened? Well, what happened? And all this doubt and anxiety starts going around and around in our minds, and instead of having that confidence that we have in our first language, we basically just feel anxious and afraid and ashamed. And it's even worse for us in a way if this is happening at work, because, maybe you're supposed to be the expert. Maybe you are the expert in your field at work. And yet, when it comes to doing stuff in English, you feel like you are a kid, a small child. And it's a horrible situation to be in. Now, as you can probably tell, I am an English native speaker, and the only time I needed to use I didn't really need it, but the only time I used a foreign language at work was when I lived in China. And I was teaching in a university, and I had very big classes of students, and they were quite lazy and not very well behaved, I have to say. And I did quite enjoy telling them off in Chinese, and it gave them a bit of a shock because they weren't expecting that, and I really enjoyed it. But I've never had to use Chinese in a conference call with Chinese business leaders. I've never had to give a presentation on facts and datas to a CEO in Chinese. But I can imagine if I had to do that, I would probably feel quite concerned about how I was going to do that. And I know from my clients that these concerns can be really, really limiting. So I've had a B2 level client who needed to use Zoom conference calls with a large group of English native speakers, and they really struggled with the accent and colloquial language. It was really hard. And I've had a C1 client who used to criticize themselves for not having the language skills of their younger colleagues, because the younger colleagues had lived in an English-speaking country and my client had not had that opportunity. And my C2 level client, who had fantastic English but slightly weak pronunciation, and they were so ashamed of their pronunciation. So all of these clients had actually a really good level of English, but they were still struggling with their negative feelings and thoughts and beliefs. So what can you do about this? If this is you, if you are a high-level English speaker, you use English at work, but you feel worried about it, what action can you take? So the first thing is that from a managerial perspective, if you are a manager, you need to listen to your staff. It's really important for an organisation that all staff feel able to speak out and be heard. And this can be more difficult for non-native speakers. Not for every non-native speaker, but for some. So, really make sure that you hear and value contributions for everyone. And by validating your staff in this way, you're going to help lower their anxiety when it comes to speaking English at work. Now, the next thing you can do is to be a little bit more specific about the problems. So if you are suffering from anxiety around your English at work, can you be really specific about where this anxiety manifests? Because it might not be all day at work. It might be just specific things that you have to do, like being in a meeting or answering the phone or, I don't know, sending an email. Sometimes people get actually very anxious about writing too. And when you've got that specific problem area, then you can start to take specific action. So, for example, you could look for a teacher. You can collect useful vocabulary phrases. You can work with a pronunciation coach. You can prioritise. If you've got a list of problem areas at work where you feel anxious, what's the most important one? If you could solve one of those areas, which one would that be? So the more focused we can be on our problems, the more specific, the easier those problems are to solve. So if you're feeling anxious at work about your English, I would highly recommend that you take some time to really analyse where that anxiety is, and then see if you can come up with one or two specific things you could do to start to chip away at that anxiety. Now, a really big problem for anxious language learners is negative self-talk, and I touched on that earlier in the video. Oh, my pronunciation's really bad. What happens if no one understands me? All this kind of stuff. And I've met students who have got really negative self-talk. Things like, I hate my pronunciation. Even, I hate myself. I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. I'm so bad at English. And again, I would say this was coming from a C1 level student, so they weren't bad at English at all. So this self-talk is really, really a problem because it's very limiting and it's very, very damaging. Now, changing self-talk takes time, it takes practice. It's not something usually that happens overnight like this, but with consistency and determination, you can change these negative stories into something healthier. So instead of, I hate my accent, I hate my pronunciation, which is really damaging, what about, well, my pronunciation is not perfect, but I've got a teacher and I'm practicing every day. So it's not about pretending that everything is perfect, but it's about taking something very destructive and turning it into something that is at least healthy to say to yourself. And another thing that you can do is to improve your interpersonal skills. Well, I had a problem saying that word, interpersonal skills, because these can be different from one culture to another. Now, this was not one of my students, but I heard of a doctor who came to work in the UK. I don't know where she was from, somewhere in Eastern Europe, but I don't know where. And she had very good English, but her patients at the hospital complained about her. In fact, she had a lot of complaints made about her. And she was a pediatrician, which is a children's doctor. And I have a friend who's also an English teacher, and he worked with her. And it turned out that although her English was great, the way she was with her patients in a kind of British culture was really rude. So she was, without wanting to be rude, she was being really rude. And she didn't ever talk to the children. She only spoke to the parents. And she would be very direct and very abrupt and blah, 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 blah. And of course, if you're a parent, a British parent, and you've got a sick kid, you're just like, I don't, ooh, whoa, stop. So getting those interpersonal skills right are really important, because a lot of our communication, it's not just about the words, it's about the way we say the words. And getting that right in a foreign language, it is quite tricky. It does take some practice, but it is possible. Okay, because this doctor, after she had done some work with my friend, she got much better. She understood the kind of British, we like to be very soft and very polite and all this kind of stuff. And she worked on it, and she stopped getting complaints. So absolutely, it's possible. Now, if you suffer from anxiety at work and you would like to meet me for a free session where we can talk about how you can take action to work on your anxiety, please click the link below. It will take you to a page of my website where you can book a free 30-minute lesson with me. And of course, if you have any questions, any comments, please leave them below this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this gave you some interesting information.